Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Grandmaster Shaymin, and today we have yet another episode of Fatal 12. As we left off, as Rinka is still trying to consider her response to Miharu, albeit she's taking a long-ass time when she could just say yes, just throwing it out there. But we are now in Miharu's perspective, as she is pissed over someone's entrance. Miharu attempts to greet her customer as per usual, but switches gears when she sees their face. It's none other than Federico. The fact that he's here means he has business with her. She shows him to a seat and then brings him some water. Leaving him to another staff member is too risky, so she decides to wait on him herself. Gorgeous as ever, ain't ya? When does your shift end? Shall I answer that by having my manager ban you for life? I'm already banned from one place, so do me a favor and cut me some slack. Anyway, I'm here to talk, so chill. It isn't hard for her to figure out he's referring to Milk Crown. She isn't aware of the specifics, but chances are it involved him getting blackout drunk. I mean, blackout roundhouse kicked in the face, but more importantly, something seems off about him to her. He's far more composed than usual, almost like he had completely changed since she last saw him. What's up? Nothing. Do you mind waiting another hour or so? We can talk during my break. Works for me. Mind bringing me a wine list then? We don't serve wine here, I'm afraid. We have is bitter coffee filled to the brim with the pretense of love. Guess I'll have one of those then. He pulls out the book after giving his order. It's a book that seems unusual for a man like him. Not on a visual level. The cover suits his image well. Rather, its contents, the collection of works from a famous painter. Miharu casts her mind to when she and Odette went to an art exhibition focused on the very same artist. See that? That right there is how you use that. See, if you take the other person out of the sentence, when she went to an art exhibition, you just take Odette out of that. The problem is using I and me most of the time. The problem, like, that's the thing. When I and Odette wouldn't work, or me and Odette wouldn't work, it would be Odette and I went to an exhibition. Just saying. Grammar's very important. I retreat to my bedroom after an hour or so of cleaning. Dealing with 2 months' worth of dust is tougher than I expected. Lots of vacuuming, not to mention the initial round of dusting. Doesn't help that she's got everything nice and organized, so I have to be extra careful. I need to do this on a regular basis. I'm about halfway done now, so it feels like an appropriate time to take a break. Gran. She's in her tracksuit. I gave my thoughts room to breathe. Cleaning her room doesn't bother me at all. It just hurts when I think that I won't see her face again for a while longer. In all honesty, I'd be lying if I said I don't hold a grudge against Scale for what he did. The sadness I feel over her not coming home far outweighs it, though. Okay, round 2. I guzzle half of my sports drink before getting back to work. I like how we just get Rinka's cleaning. Back to this. Alan Scorpion finds himself standing outside Lion House. Oh shit. A sign declaring its closure for the day causes him to sigh. Bad timing. While a common sight for the store's regulars, it's a spot of bad luck for Alan. He wants to discuss things properly with Rinka. He could do so over the phone, seeing as he has her number, but he wants to look into her eyes as she does it. So be it. Alan abandons his plan and sets off to find somewhere else to satisfy his hunger. Yo, he's just like, he could break down the door or knock on the door. He's like, I just want to be a regular customer and just sit down. Sorry for the wait. Federico has long since finished his coffee by the time Miharu comes over to see him. He closes his book and cuts to the chase. Tell me Alan Scorpion's cause of death. The contrast between him doing this and the typical attitude takes Miharu aback. Federico notices this, but opts not to address it. We had an agreement that you'd tell us after you was eliminated. Things might have not gotten a bit muddled with Odette going rogue and Scale trying to eliminate you, but I still have the right to know. His attitude continues to surprise her. She had pegged him as a far more brash and careless person, the type that could never truly be cruel to another. That impression remained firm even during the latest round of divine selection. He even seemed the same when he first arrived at the restaurant, but something has changed the moment he took his seat. You have a point. She takes a moment to think before answering. Ignoring him outright is one option, but he seems to hold no hostility towards her, and the fact that he seems worth talking to right now, and there are two issues I have with it, but this isn't quite the place to discuss either. Is there any way you can get yourself back into that bar's good graces? I guess you're right. Fine. I'll see what I can do. This is absolutely not the place to discuss anything related to divine selection. Miharu is confident he'll be able to sort something out, although that confidence she has in him perplexes her. After arranging to meet in 3 hours, Federico pays his bill and leaves. Interesting. Back to Rinka. She's still dusting? Oh yeah, hell yeah. Phew. Night is falling by the time I finish cleaning my Gram's room. Getting it all out of the way today was a good call, at least. It looks nice and clean now. All that's left is to wash the windows on Saturday. I take a nice warm shower to wash off all the dust and sweat. Ideally, I'd follow that by crawling up into bed, but there's something else I need to do first. I take a deep breath and turn my attention to a certain book. It really is the same. It looks exactly the same as my card book. The one major difference is that, oh my god, is that her parents' book? Is that like from the fire? The one major difference is that this one is far more worn than mine. She found it in her grand's room. That proves it, to the extent that it looks like it's going to fall apart without proper care. The color and decorations on it are practically the same, though. Although hers feels somehow more unique than my card book. It's almost like it was handcrafted as opposed to being mass-produced. My gran was surprised when she saw my card book during my visit the other day. I recall sending her a photo of it before I realized its purpose. She didn't seem concerned at the time, claiming that there might be one similar in her room. It wasn't until she saw the real thing that she remembered having one that looks exactly the same. There's no way I would let that comment slip. I asked if I could check it out while cleaning her room, which she agreed to. It took little effort for me to find, considering how she remembered where it was. All I had to do was pull it out of the box from the bottom of her bookshelf and open it. This belongs to her great-great-grandmother. That's what she told me anyway. That would mean this has been around for over 100 years. Makes sense considering its ragged condition. So that's her grandmother's grandmother. Right? No. Her grandmother's grandmother. Yes. Great-great-grandmother, yeah. The book's history alone makes it a pretty important relic. With that in mind, I take a deep breath before opening it. The contents were written in English, which doesn't surprise me. My gran revealed that her own gran was from England, making her a quarter English. I was kind of amazed that she never once brought that up in 16 years we'd spent together. When questioned about it, she replied it's because I never thought to ask. Not only does that mean I'm 1/16th English, but it apparently also explains the gold coloring in some of my hair. Interesting. Setting that aside, she also said that she never bothered to read the book because of her grasp of English is poor, to put it nicely. It remained an important memento from her own grand, however, so she couldn't bring herself to throw it away. It's a diary. The first page is a simple brown fay leaf. Page 2 is where the diary starts. It's handwritten, although the ink is starting to fade here and there due to its age. I can't say I'm too familiar with English writing habits, but something about the penmanship tells me it's written by a woman. That would mean it's my great-great-grandmother's diary. I placed my card book next to the diary before reading it. I should be able to read it just fine thanks to the card book's effect. Or not. It's kind of hard to parse when the writing's so faded. It takes me half an hour to make it through just 2 pages. The best comparison I can make is that I'm trying to read Japanese, except kanji is all jumbled up. Not being able to make out certain phrases is what makes it hard to decipher, basically. From what I could get, though, It seems like a regular diary. She talks about the food she ate and whatnot. I was right about it being written 100 years ago. It's pretty interesting to learn the cultural differences between the early 1900s and today. So wait, 100 years ago. But, okay, so my great-grandma lived to be over 100 years old. And she's talking about her great-great-grandmother. Either her family is just really young as a whole, or her great-grandmother had to have been late in her years when she started keeping this diary. Not only that, but it being exactly the same seems a bit odd. Perhaps Parka might be involved somehow. I'll take a while to get through the entire thing at this pace, though. Plus, I might not say anything related to divine selection at all. Might be best if I just check whether or not diaries like this were sold at the time, if I can find anything relevant by flipping through. Guess I should give it more time. I'll read one more page tonight before bed, and then a few more tomorrow. That should be enough to decide whether it's worth pursuing or not. I noticed something curious when solidifying my plan. I almost forgot. This diary was made and given to me by my sister Diana for my birthday. Wait. This diary was made and given to me by my sister Diana for my birthday. That explains my earlier thoughts, although I figured it was more due to the time taking its toll on the book rather than its craftsmanship. Now I'm even more curious about the link between it and our card books. It's definitely one of a kind. There's no internet back then, so they couldn't have published the design somewhere for others to easily replicate. The theory I had 10 minutes ago has already been proven wrong thanks to this. This diary might just have the answers I'm looking for. My gut is telling me I'm right. But what's really curious is that Parka is supposed to be watching all of this happen, right? Isn't that what the conclusion they came to? Is there nothing Parka can do? Because I feel like she would try and stop them from figuring everything out. I doubt anyone would think otherwise when faced with these same mysteries. I had planned on studying tonight, but that can wait. Instead, I take the diary downstairs with me. I'll need the right environment to read through this beast. Interesting. That's crazy. Miharu finds herself at Milk Crown for the first time in around 2 weeks. While the idea of a high schooler visiting a bar like this is problematic in and of itself, Miharu has already become accustomed to it. I managed to smooth things out just as promised. Federico is already there by the time she arrives. He wasted no time in buying a drink, it seems. The bar's lighting reflects off the amber liquid in its glass. We agreed he'd let me back if I bought the most expensive whiskey on the shelf. It's damn good. Want some? Pretty sure he'll let it slide. I'm sure I made my intention to not drink clear last time. Sorry to disappoint, but could you just give me some milk? See, this girl and I are so alike. See, I'd do that anyway. I'd go to a bar and I'd be like, yo, give me that shot of milk. 2%. No, whole milk. Her decision leaves him visibly disappointed, leading to him and the bar owner clicking their glasses together on their own. Miharu receives sighs in response, as the owner doesn't seem to care at all that Federico has been barred once before and is now forking out a hefty sum for a drink. Right, now for you and me to spend some quality time together. Oh, please, any more talk of that and I might become allergic to you. Federico's attitude while drinking is much more in line with her previous image of him. She feels an odd sense of relief over this. Oh, well, you said there were 2 issues with revealing Alan's cause of death, right? Fill me in on those first. Fine. The first one is that I only know the contents of his death card. She goes on to explain that she doesn't know the details behind how it happened. This means Federico will be unable to obtain a card even if she reveals it to him. Fine with me, I'm heading to India soon to get as much info as I can on him, really. Scale only gave me the most basic of details, so I'm going to visit his family and find out the details behind his cause of death and regret. Oh, wow. Knowing the contents of the card itself will make this a whole lot easier. Are you serious? Damn right I am. The first thing Odette would do if she ever got... It's the first thing Odette would do if she ever got stuck. Not like I can imagine that ever happening to her in the first place. He urges her to tell him about the second issue. Before she can say anything, he downs the rest of his drink and gets his glass refilled. Alan is going to be eliminated whether or not you gather information on him. It's likely he wants Rinka to be the one to do it. Miharu had already heard about how Scale's targeting Rinka's grandmother and how it's Alan who saved her. It was easy for her to deduce that Alan felt some sort of attachment to Rinka based on both that and what she heard previously. At the same time, his actions didn't seem like those of someone who intended to survive divine selection. Is that so? Not really an issue for me. I've only got one goal now: eliminate that asshole myself. Rather stubborn, aren't you? You'd be much better off ignoring him and focusing on myself and Rinka. Sorry, but I don't give no interest in you two right now, unless it's your body, of course. Miharu can only think of one woman while she watches him laugh after making that comment. It leads her to understand why he felt like a different person before. Yep, so she's like, man, this guy really takes after Odette. Like, seriously, he wants to try and be like her. Either way, it does hurt to reveal his cause of death to you, and I'd rather not break our promise. It was poison. I don't know anything behind that, but his fame shouldn't make it too hard to figure out. You'll be able to turn that into a card in no time. Cheers to that! With that out of the way, hang out with me till I catch my flight this morning. I'll decline. Have you forgotten that I'm still in high school? Miharu takes a breath before continuing. However, I suppose I could force down another glass of milk. I'll stick around until I finish that. There's a reason why she decides to say this. It's because she knows. She knows that this will be the last time she and Federico ever cross paths in the real world. Miharu goes straight to bed upon returning home. The next day, she manages to obtain Federico's regret card. She's got it and reflected on the events of the night before while taking a bath. Obligatory bath scene? No? Okay. Yo, wait, Monday? It's still Monday? All of this has happened in one day? Jesus. Christmas. Okay. I feel like I'm about to collapse when I'm only 1/6 through the diary. I've always been a slow reader, but I'm probably going twice as slow thanks to the faded writing. It's just your run-of-the-mill diary. That's about the only thing I can say from what I read so far. I feel both guilty and slightly embarrassed upon reading it, since it feels like I'm peeking into someone else's life. Apparently my great-great-grandmother's name was Linda, with vague similarities between it and my own name makes me feel a bond over her. Her dad was an English clockmaker. Both he and his wife moved to Japan before Linda was born. He visited Japan once before to instruct others about his craft, and it left quite a positive impression. The decision for him to move was the result of the company he previously instructed offering him a permanent position. Linda was born not long after he moved, and her sister Diana followed the next year. I doubt that my gran remembers much about Diana, and I'm just now noticing how well designed the diary is. My bias against the design thanks to my card book got in the way of that. She must be a nice person if she's willing to make something this nice for her sister. The contents of the diary itself give me the impression that they got along well. Part of me feels jealous, since I don't have any siblings. Now that I think about it, Naomi and Miharu are the same. Mao has a younger brother, which makes her my only friend with a sibling. Anyway, I just close the diary and glancing at the clock. I make sure to be nice and gentle so the spine doesn't crumble. This will probably take me a week to get through. I've decided to pick up where I left off tomorrow, and I head up to my room. Okay, fair enough. Oh, shit. I can't believe it. I feel this good, despite how much I drank. Can't believe Miharu went home after her drink, too. The next guy that falls for her is going to have a rough time, no doubt about that. Or girl. Anyway. Federico chats aloud on the near empty train. His destination, the airport. He finds himself thinking back on his life during the ride. Born in southern Italy, his life was an amalgamation of failures. As a child, he was often bullied. He was thin back then as he was now, only shorter. It left him with no real means to defend himself. His attempt at retaliation only resulted in further beatdowns both physically and verbally. He became a child who knew the taste of defeat well. At the same time, his parents had settled on a divorce after dealing with a lot of friction. Federico wanted to stay with his mother. There was no deep reasoning behind it. He simply liked being around her more at the time, even though those feelings were linked to failure. The divorce was due to an affair on the mother's side. Naturally, Federico had no involvement in it, but he considered his choice a failure regardless. His mother opted to move in with the man she was seeing and eventually married him. The wedding ring wasn't something she left for Federico. He snatched it when it tumbled out of the garbage. Even so, he couldn't bring himself to part with it, as it represented his desire to see her once more. 20 years later, he finally realized that it served to symbolize his inability to win his mother's love. Funny how little I care that it's gone. Who knows, maybe she felt the same way when I tossed it, or when she tossed it. I guess how she wasn't able to devote herself to one person, too. The first time he started dating someone was just after entering high school. She was a frank girl, one to always drag him around at her whim. While things appeared steady between them, it was all for nothing when she had to move away. Putting that aside, he thought of those events. His high school life was nothing but failure, even when he was no longer the target of bullying. He was surrounded by people far more skilled than him in the soccer club. No matter how hard he tried to surpass them, he could never manage it. Even when he put his all into studying, he was never able to be the best grades in class. Compounding these with the failures of his childhood led Federico to become a child who had always held himself back, not that he was aware of it. Much like how he was never aware of the misfortune it continued to cause him much later in life. His fear of failure led to the decision to not apply to any universities, a reality that he continually denied. Instead, he started up his own business. A choice was spurred by his father's death, which left him with a fairly large inheritance. The business itself wasn't complicated. Anyone with a good amount of money on their hands could do it. He loaned money to those who were struggling, achieved a hefty interest rate, and collected what he was owed at a later date. Of course, he made sure to choose his business partners well, people who couldn't inform the police of his activities due to their having multiple debts on criminal records. In other words, those who experienced failure on an even greater level than him. There were a number of ways to deal with those who wouldn't pay him up. He could force them to visit other loan sharks, lay claim to whatever valuables they had, or simply beat the money out of them. In terms of profit, he was doing somewhat well for himself until he ran into an issue that money couldn't solve, and that was he was conducting business within the Mafia's territory. Naturally, they weren't pleased. Those who crossed the Mafia were likely to be whacked with the snap of a finger. That freak of nature was way more intimidating than they ever were, physically at least. In the end, Federico's first ever business venture resulted in failure. There was only one way for him to escape his situation. He presented the profits he made to one of the Mafia's higher-ups and became a member himself. He never held any significant position there, but his abilities allowed him to bring a fair amount of money into the organization. He even began targeting landowners, convincing them to give up their land in exchange for social status. There was one issue, however. A majority of the money he made was funneled straight to the higher-ups, which ticked him off. That led him to laundering the organization's money by transferring it to a bank in Switzerland. He set his eyes on a certain shipping company, too, one he had dealt with before. Of course, it was no ordinary shipping company. They dealt in weapons, stolen goods, and much more. The boat itself was stateless, but its representative was a woman from France. They were effectively a group of independent mercenaries. Kind of amazing they let me on in the first place, now that I think about it. Having discussed things with the captain of the ship, that being Odette Malencon, he settled on fleeing the country. The Mafia itself was essentially a family-run business. Federico would never make it to the top in that environment, regardless of how hard he tried. Even so, all the members had to make a blood oath upon joining. Were they to quit, all that awaited them was prison. Of course, one could not simply quit the Mafia and expect to live, and thus, fearing failure once more, he chose to flee, only for the ship to be targeted by pirates, leading to both his and Odette's death. Ain't nothing cool about being a loser even after dying. By reflecting on his path, Federico was able to lull himself to sleep until he arrives at his next stop. His mind is on only one thing: to gather as much information about Alan as possible before returning to Japan on Sunday morning. He has yet to notice. Through all of his life may be steeped in failure, he never gives in. He's always struggled against that which most people simply accepted. Federico Camerati is no loser in the game of life. So he's Ash Ketchum. Okay, cool beans. I make sure to open the store after school. I've been feeling better now that my grand's room is all neat and tidy. Once closing time comes around, I go to my usual routine before bringing the diary downstairs to read it. As always, I make sure to handle it with the utmost care, and then I delve deeper into the daily lives of Linda and Diana. It's kind of interesting. So Alan came by and chose not to, go there, but Alan finds himself staying in a hotel today. It isn't unusual for him to switch to one over the warehouse in Yokohama every now and then. The warehouse is perfectly fine for him. It does lack the facilities required to recharge his phone and laptop, however. Not that he can deny the pleasure that comes from sleeping on a comfortable bed. I couldn't bring myself to go today. I like how he's like a sheepish little teenage boy. He's like, I couldn't talk to the cute girl today. While he had made the decision to visit Rinka yesterday, the store she was running was closed. Today, on the other hand, he couldn't simply bring himself to go. It's proof that he needed if proof was needed for the butterfly effect of missing one's opportune moment, this would be it. It would have no influence on Alan under normal circumstances, yet he finds himself being unable to operate as usual when it comes to Rinka. Yo, wait. So, is this like Odette and Alan, the two most intimidating people, fall in love with the two main leads? Even though they're in love with each other? That's funny. Okay. My next chance may be my last. He collapsed onto a bed and cast his mind to the first participant he eliminated. Oh! See, we never really got anything on that guy. Chan? Chan! Oh man, what voice do I give Chan? I don't think he's said anything to this point. Wait, is that... It's a girl, isn't it? You can tell by the little shadow in the middle of her chest there. I think. At least biologically speaking. She seems to be a girl. Hey, so we finally meet! May 3rd, Sunday, 3 days following the juncture of causality. Alan had been called out by a lone woman. Alan had received the explanation about divine selection from Parka by this point, but he chose not to go to Japan until after the first round. The woman standing before him was Chan! I was right! She was the one that caused him to forego his decision and instead come earlier. It wasn't unusual for people he didn't know to request appointments with him considering his position. These requests were typically ignored, however he had no choice but to take notice when she brought up divine selection over the phone. While still somewhat suspicious, it was here he learned that a small number of people found themselves in the same situation as him. I'm so glad you came, Mr. Allen. Man, I like how they have information on each other already. It's been 3 days. She stood meters away from him, her tone as confident as they came. I gotta admit, I really like her design. She's kind of cute. In Alan's eyes, she seemed nothing more than an average woman in her early 20s. Her appeal was simple, but what one would expect of someone on vacation. How do you know me? Rather, how do you know I'm a participant in divine selection? Oh, come on. You know that you're famous, don't you? To answer the second question, sure, I'll fill you in. Just so happens that your name card was part of the initial cards I was dealt. Not many people with a strange name like yours, that's for sure. Actually, I've known you for a while, though. Do you remember a man named William Liu? Doesn't ring a bell. Figured as much. Bill, rather, was part of an advertising company that works with yours. He said the moment
He's met you in person, but I guess Mr. Boss doesn't have time to remember the lowly faces of his subcontractors.
The more the woman spoke, the less Alan cared to be bothered. He was never very good with these types, the ones who gradually drifted off topic from the longer they spoke. Were she a regular businesswoman, he would have been long gone.
Yeah, so I'm Bill's fiancée.
Care to get to the point, Miss Chan?
Huh? How do you know my name? I don't remember telling you.
I recommend withholding your number if you plan on using an alias when phoning a company.
Excuse me?
After he said that, Alan took out a single card. Chan was quite familiar with the card's design. VI, name, Chan. She wasn't aware of the significance behind the number yet, but it was clear that her own name was written on it. I'm afraid I was already bore witness to the moment a new card is produced.
Hey now, isn't that cheating? What happened to protecting people's personal information?
Alan remained silent in the face of her panic. Dude, freaking caller ID strikes again. He was aware that nothing would come from interacting with her if things were normal.
It's just my name, though. Hard not to discover something so common. More importantly...
Chan, you fell to your death, correct?
No way, how did you know?
It was simple, really. VI, cause of death, fell to their death. You could have just said fell or something. Cause of death. They fell to their death. That's redundant. Okay. He was unable to determine whose cards belonged to at the time. Oh, so he was dealt that one, and he had yet to meet anyone else in the Court of Fate. However, he soon realized that each participant had been identifying numeral after he came to possess Chan's name card. He had anticipated this by nature of his personal cards containing the number 12, but with this he was able to confirm it. Once he knew that Chan was number VI, he was able to link her cause of death and name.
Oh, don't tell me I just said something I shouldn't have.
Her carelessness was sort of an irritation for Alan. One shouldn't make light of their own name. Once, of course, that's advice you'll have to consider in your next life. Alan was already an atheist. Was already? So he... Okay. But the teaching of his parents seemed to carry a lingering influence on him.
I don't know why you're acting like you know my regret, but...
You were climbing a mountain with William while on vacation. It was nothing too difficult, more of a hike than climbing, really. However, curiosity got the better of you. It led to you veering off the designated route toward the cliff's edge in hopes of a better way.
Huh? How could you know? Were you stalking me? Oh, that's gross. I can't stand gloomy people like you. Even if you have a handsome face. Besides, Bill's the only man for me.
As far as how you fell to your death, I think it's fair to assume you slipped. Truly the definition of foolish for such a thing to happen after entering an off-limits area.
Shut it. Since you love talking so much, tell me how you know this much about me.
I can't tell if you're clueless or if the panic is causing you to forget. Alan made sure to gather as much information on Chan as he could the moment he learned her name. He wasn't entirely convinced that divine selection was real, but the creation of the cards and the existence of a card book that removed all language barriers convinced him not to deny it outright. Information provided with the upper hand when negotiating. That was the conclusion Alan had reached. It's why he did everything he could to gather information not only on her, but her fiancé William as well, though he wouldn't admit such a thing. Half of what he told her was information she herself made public via rampant social media posts and updates. While the results of her fall had clearly been undone, it wasn't difficult for him to put pieces together based on the Dude, social media! Dude, that actually makes a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying? I mean, think about it. Everybody has social media these days. And so it wouldn't be surprising if, like, freaking she Instagrammed her going off this path or whatever, or going hiking with her fiancé. The only difference is that in this reality, they made it back safe.
Well, whatever. Let's put an end to this farce.
Chan wiped the sweat from her brow before whipping out a knife. It was a butcher's knife, about 20 centimeters in length. Her intent with it was clear as day.
I've got my life together with Bill waiting for me. I can't afford to die again.
She raises the knife before dashing at Alan. A mere 5 meters separated them. She would reach him at her speed in an instant. Chun was confident in her speed thanks to having played tennis since her childhood. What's more, Alan was a stereotypical rich boy, which he had no means to defend himself, or so she thought. Were you not informed that participants cannot die via normal means? Alan dodged her with ease before twisting her wrist and stealing the knife from her grasp. He kept hold of her wrist, however, and brought the knife to rest against her neck. How can this happen? Let's take a time out, okay? You must not believe what the goddess said, I take it. Not that I would believe it for myself before I've seen proof. Hang on a sec. That isn't looking good for me, is it? I mean, if I die, I'll die if you slice me up with that. You'll become a murderer, you know. Alan could hardly believe the words coming out of the woman's mouth after her own attempt to stab him. He knew that there was no point in calling her out for it, however. Would you like to be my test subject? Don't, please. Help, someone help! Disastrous hardly began to describe what transpired next. Just as Chun screamed, William leapt out of hiding. He attempted to jump Alan, but Alan used Chun as a human shield. William could make no move in this situation, so Alan threw the knife away and pushed Chun towards him. They both fell over and slammed into as she slammed into him, causing Alan to look down on them both. Tonight is your final night with her, Mr. William. Spend it well. Saying that, he took out a third card. VI, regret, married life. No, my regret. You are without a doubt the most foolish participant among the 12. I hate to say he's right, but he's right. Alan had lost all interest in Chun by this point. He picked up the knife and tossed it back to them. The last thing he wanted to do was raise suspicion by carrying it around when he had only just arrived to Japan. Neither Chun nor William saw this as an opportunity either. Their instinctual fear of him had taken over. Not even a gun would make them feel as though they stood on equal footing with him. Alan had no interest in what they did following that event. This place may come in handy. Not only was it abandoned, but no one else seemed to be squatting there either. It's neither too close nor too far from the city. Should everything check out over the next few days, he would use it as his base of operations. Poor Chan-Chan, she got wrecked. Part of me can understand her desperation now, at least. Alan lets his thoughts slip out as he stares at the hotel room ceiling. Interesting. 2 hours after I began reading, I made it through another fifth of the diary, I guess. While the diary of the girl living through the end of the Meiji period is interesting in its own right, the structure is inherently different from a novel. That makes the process of reading it pretty tiring. I did come across an interesting tidbit, albeit one unrelated to Divine Selection. They had a black cat as well. It had leisurely attitude, seemed to be attached to Diana, more attached to Diana than Linda. It would appear and disappear when it saw fit. By the sounds of it, it could have been Leaf's great-great-grand cat. They called the cat Leo, which is pretty similar to Leaf. One diary entry was about how it once stepped on a piece of broken glass, leaving a scar on its paw and its right leg. Meow. Speak of the devil, it's Leaf. Hey, you should watch out for broken glass. You haven't walked on some already, have you? Meow. I try to approach, but Leaf runs off. Must have sensed something annoying was about to happen. I guess it's fine if it can still sprint like that. Following that, I close the diary and head back to my room. Dude, Leaf is going to be the same cat. Once in bed, I start to think about what I should do from here on out. Let's put things into perspective. I have 3 main concerns at the moment. First and foremost, finding a means for both Miharu and me to survive. I have yet to reach a conclusion, but I'm sure that figuring out the mysteries behind Divine Selection itself is the right approach. I can't say for sure whether or not I've made any progress until I've finished reading Linda's diary. The second concern is gathering information on Alan. This seems a difficult one, especially since I don't understand his goal. I know for a fact he has no hostility towards me, but I hardly think he's willing to let me eliminate him just because of that. That's why I need to discuss things with him. There's no way to contact him, but something tells me he'll come to see me soon. Third and final concern. Whoa. Where is your concern for answering Miharu? Because you got to do...
My third and final concern is Federico. I know both his name and cause of death, but I have nothing to go on for his regret. I never talked to him in person, so that makes things even more difficult. Huh? Just then I received a text message. It's from Miharu. I've gathered all of Federico's information. My shift starts later tomorrow, so do you mind if I come to Lion House after school? The message itself is short, but I can't help but be amazed at her perfect timing. I text back, that works for me. I figured I could use that time to talk to her about the diary as well. I haven't hit a dead end quite yet. Forcing myself to believe that, I set my mind on getting some sleep. Fair enough. Well, that's about all the time we have for this episode, so make sure you click that thumbs up button down below for me, because you already know your support is greatly appreciated. As in the next episode, we will begin the next part, as you saw in the top right corner just a mere moment ago. It is July 4th. It is America Day in the game, which means nothing because none of the participants are American anymore. But still, make sure you click that like button for America Day and, you know, all that jazz. And subscribe for future content, and we'll see you all next time.